Here is this week's charity news for the 9th of May 2025. Swimming at Medina is on Monday between 1:15pm and 2pm. We have the whole pool, so whether you wish to swim lanes or just have gentle exercise in the pool, you will be made very welcome. The cost is £6 and transport is available, although limited. All members are very welcome to join.
The Hearing Cafe is on Monday at Brown's Golf Course, Sundown, between 10:30 and 12pm. Caron and Karen will be there to chat too and to answer any queries.
Yoga is on Tuesday at Millbrook House between 1:45pm and 2:45pm. This group is now full, but if you wish to put your name down on the waiting list, please call the office.
Coffee and Chat is on Wednesday starting at 10am until 11:30am. The cost is £2 to include drinks and cake. Staff are on hand to help with any queries and to demonstrate equipment.
Eye on Social, planned for Wednesday, has been cancelled. This is due to the VE party taking place this week and availability of volunteers and staff. Our next Eye on Social now is on Wednesday 11th of June. More details to follow shortly.
Now the warmer and hopefully sunnier weather is coming, our tandem bikes are now out and about. If you would like a tester session, please call the office and a slot can be booked with the pilots.
If you sometimes wish you had a friend to talk to and feel isolated from the outside world, our telephone befrienders are on hand to call you for a friendly chat. The calls can be weekly, fortnightly or monthly and can be tailored around your needs. If you would like to receive a telephone call, please call the office and we will match you with a befriender.
Our monthly 100 club has spare balls available. If anyone would like to buy a ball, it is £2 a month or £24 for the full year. The more balls in the draw, the higher the prize money each month. If you would like to take part in our monthly draw, please call the office. This is part of our fundraising activities.
This is the second part of the Talking News, read by Sam
and Valerie.
We begin with more news items taken from the County Press and the Observer, starting with an article headlined "Landmark Election Wins for Farage Party." Reform UK won 2 Isle of Wight council seats at last week's by-election. In a landmark victory for the right-wing Populist Party, David McLean received 291 votes in the Lake North ward. The Conservatives' Adrian Whittaker came second, backed by 232 voters. Councillor McLean was not present at the Westridge Centre count, citing a family emergency. The full results were as follows: Emily Brothers, Labour, 47 votes. Julie Burridge, Liberal Democrat, 85. David McLean, Reform, 291. Robert May, Green, 97. Sarah Maurice, Independent, 55. Adrian Whittaker, 232. Meanwhile, in the central rural ward, Caroline Gladwin received 410 votes, with Simon Richards, Conservatives, on 220, and Julia Larson, Green Party, just behind on 219. She replaces Susie Ellis, who previously represented the ward as a Conservative councillor. She told the press the old parties had failed and voters were looking for something new. We're going to be looking out for rural residents and farmers. I will be doing all I can for the residents, Councillor Gladwin said. The full list of results is as follows: Bob Blezard, Liberal Democrats, 146. Caroline Gladwin, Reform UK, 410. Simon Haytack, Labour, 34. Julia Larson, Green Party, 219. Simon Richards, Conservative, 220.
The Independent Storms to Victory in By-Election by Rufus Pickles. An independent candidate stormed to victory in the Freshwater South Isle of Wight Council by-election. A total of 472 voters backed Becca Cameron, who was to replace fellow independent councillor John Midland as the area's County Hall representative. Reform's UK candidate Bill Nye came second with 269 votes. Councillor Cameron said, "Thank you so much to everyone that came out to vote for me, and thank you to my fabulous team that has supported me. The people of Freshwater have spoken. They have stood up to fight to protect our beautiful area before it is destroyed forever. People will visit the West Wight for its beauty, its open spaces, for its inspiration, its nature, peace and tranquility, and not to see mass housing developments the government is forcing upon us. Building on our green fields ignores our unique protected landscape and will damage our vital tourist industry forever. The people of Freshwater say no. I will fight tooth and nail for my amazing community and protect all that we love and cherish." Jarman and Councillor Peter Spink in County Hall's Empowering Islanders group. Councillor Jarman said, "Becca has a long track record of supporting West Wight residents groups and being instrumental in delivering key projects. Her vitality, determination and local support won her the admiration of those from every political persuasion, and her focus on replacing poor practice made her the clear community choice. We look forward to her contribution to our continued initiatives at Isle of Wight Council under the new committee system." Councillor Cameron said, "Chris, Peter and I will be a joint force covering the whole of Freshwater, Totland, Yarmouth, Norton, Allen Bay, Compton and Colwell. The proposed mass building on our fields ignores our unique protected landscape and will destroy our area and our tourist industry. People visit the West Wight for its beauty and open spaces, for its nature, history, peace and tranquility, and not to see mass housing."
September start for big bridge work. The island's longest bridge is set to undergo major structural repairs starting in the autumn, resulting in 2 road closures and short closures of the dual carriageway. Island Roads is preparing to remove and replace 16 bridge bearings on the Medina Way Bridge, crucial to the safety of the dual carriageway. The works are set to start in mid-September and last 5.5 months, with short overnight closures during some phases of the work. Island Roads said the work requires its duration, as the bridge will have to be temporarily jacked up while the bearings are replaced. Little London and Newport Quay will be closed as through routes during the work in order to accommodate temporary support. Pedestrian and cycle access will be maintained, and traffic will be able to access Newport Quay via Fairley Road and Sea Close. Little London will remain accessible with its one-way road converted temporarily to accommodate 2 directions outside the Bargeman's Rest. Project manager Luke Ward stated, "Medina Bridge is heavily used, so we must balance safe maintenance with the impact on road users and businesses. Our inspections indicate that now is the time to undertake this work, and we are providing as much advance notice as possible."
Shock as car careers into a home by Zach Saunders. A Gunville resident said she was still in shock on Sunday after a car ploughed through her garden and into the side of her home on Saturday evening. Emergency services were called to Chapel Close at around 7 p.m. after a white Fiat 500 reversed at speed into a fence, struck a concrete post and a stationary motorcycle, and continued into the front garden of Tracy Paddon's home. The force of the impact destroyed a new garden fence, with the car colliding with a solid wood wheelbarrow and a bench. All the items, including the motorcycle, were trapped underneath the Fiat and were dragged across the garden when recovery firm Bartlett's came to take the vehicle away. The motorcycle belonged to Tracy's upstairs neighbour, Liam Phillips, who relied on it to get to work, but is now left without a vehicle. I had just had a shower and was sitting downstairs, Tracy told the county press. I heard an almighty bang. I thought, oh my God, a car is going to come through my lounge, and I headed straight outside. She added, normally I would have had plants and flowers, but I have been out there watering them. If I had been, I'd be dead. A big pile of fat and bones in the corner. Tracy said the car had been rocking back and forth on a dipped grass verge used for parking before it suddenly lurched backwards and smashed through the fence, colliding with the side of her home. The concrete posts that were ripped up in the crash had been there since before the war, she said. It's all a bit of a shock. I had nightmares all night about a white car going up in smoke. Tracy had been worried about the motorcycle's petrol tank, which had become wedged under the Fiat. We were lucky it didn't just all blow up. It took the brunt of the everything. Bike first, a 4-foot concrete post, solid wood wheelbarrow, cast iron wheel and a bench. If the bike hadn't taken it all, I would have been dead, she said. A police spokesman said there was no injuries reported and could not confirm whether anyone had been arrested. Watch the video at countypress.co.uk.
Asda customers raise a stink. New flooring in a supermarket caused such a horrific smell that some customers left without buying anything. The materials used in the repair of a section of flooring at Asda on Saturday night have been blamed by customers for the strong odour, which left shoppers feeling unwell. Disgruntled customers took to social media to vent their complaints. Emma Luff posted, "It's honestly disgusting, the smell." Graham Smith added, "It stank. Feel sorry for the staff who have to work in it." Several shoppers complained of the effects it had on their health. Chloe Louise posted, "It was horrendous. Gave me an awful headache." An Asda spokesperson downplayed the impact on customers. Flooring repairs were completed on a small area of the shop floor while the store was closed, to minimise any disruption, Asda said. The area is now clear, and we'd like to thank customers for their understanding.
New fast food outlet planned. A new multi-million-pound McDonald's restaurant could open on the island. The fast food giant has lodged an application with County Hall for a new branch with a drive-through facility off Newport Road in Lake. McDonald's say the outlet is expected to employ more than 120 full and part-time staff, which it hopes to recruit from the local area. If approved, the branch will be the island's third McDonald's and second with drive-through capacity. An existing KFC sits immediately to the northwest of the application site. A submitted statement said, "The proposed constitutes sustainable development on a brownfield site in a commercial area surrounded by similar and compatible uses." Public consultation is due to finish on June the 2nd, and a decision is expected on June the 25th.
Wait for Isle of Wight inquests is the longest out of England and Wales. On the Isle of Wight, residents wait longer than anywhere else in the country to learn how their loved ones have died. The latest government data shows, in 2024, the estimated average time taken to process an inquest on the Isle of Wight was 76 weeks, up from 67 in 2023 and 63 in 2022. The wait on the Isle of Wight for an inquest to be concluded is at least 13 weeks longer than any other area in England and Wales. It dwarfs that of South Wales Central, 63 weeks, Hampshire, Portsmouth and Southampton, 62 weeks, and Inner South London, 60 weeks. The estimated average time taken to process an inquest across England and Wales in 2024 was 31.2 weeks, down from 31.5 in 2023. The disparity between regions is mainly due to differences that exist from one coroner area to another. Factors include availability of resources, staff and judicial resources, the presence of facilities like hospitals and prisons, and the social economic makeup of regions. In 2024, Isle of Wight coroner Caroline Summeray concluded 38 inquests, of which 1 was drug or alcohol related, 2 concerned suicides, 1 concerned a road traffic accident, 4 concerned deaths from industrial diseases, 15 concerned deaths by accident or misadventure, and 3 concerned deaths from natural causes. Other conclusions were formed for the remaining 12. The only area where fewer inquests were concluded in 2024 was Ceredigion in Wales. Ceredigion's population was around 71,500 in 2024, while the Isle of Wight was more than double that sum. Last year, a total of 679 deaths were reported on the Isle of Wight. 436 post-mortems were carried out, and 123 inquests were opened, compared to 774, 467, and 174 respectively in 2023. Mrs. Summeray said, "I recognise that the Isle of Wight coronial area is not the fastest to complete inquests. There are multiple reasons, including the non-availability of an island-based pathologist willing to do coronial work, a larger proportion of inquests having to wait for other external agencies' investigations to be completed, and the need to ensure we carry out extremely thorough investigations. Those investigations do take time to resolve. It goes without saying that the fastest investigations are not always the most robust. It is essential that I leave no stone unturned."
Solar power station plan withdrawn at the last minute from a committee agenda. A major planning application for a renewable energy park south of a large Isle of Wight village was withdrawn at the last minute ahead of a County Hall meeting on Tuesday. The Planning Committee was due to review the Sunny Oaks Renewable Energy Park Limited's revised proposal for a solar power station northwest of Winterhalls Road and southwest of Wootton Bridge. At the start of the round table, however, Council Planning boss Ollie Bolter informed members of the application had been removed from the agenda after the local authority received a significant amount of further information from a third-party objector on Monday afternoon. He told the Chamber, "The application that was due to be in front of you, reference 22nd 01585-FUL, has been withdrawn from the agenda at the request of the applicant." Committee members originally considered the application in September 2023 due to it being of genuine island-wide significance and it raising marginal and difficult policy issues according to an office report. A subsequent legal challenge against the previously approved plans led to the quashing of planned permission on the grounds that councillors were not given information relating to fire risk. Prior to its withdrawal from the agenda, planners said the application had to be reconsidered with the fire risk information in front of the committee.
Cabinet member gets lowest vote. A former education cabinet member who led contentious plans to close 6 primary schools, including one in Brading, has lost his seat on the town's council. Jonathan Bacon garnered the fewest votes in the Brading Town Council election, 81, a contest that saw Nick Binfield, a prominent campaigner against the closure of Brading Primary School, elected for the first time with 168 votes. The local authority has responsibility for facilities and services, including allotments, the Beech Grove Play Area, Bullies Hill Quarry, and grant awards, according to its website. There were 8 seats available, and Jonathan Bacon came 9th. Councillor Bacon remains on the Isle of Wight Council. He has been approached for comment.
3 in court over bus station incident. 3 men have admitted their roles in a violent incident at a bus station in March. Patrick William O'Flynn, 41, of Lee Road, Sandown, admitted a fray and possession of a kitchen knife in a public place, namely Newport Bus Station. Benjamin David Blenkinson, 23, of Hefford Road, East Cowes, pleaded guilty to a fray and possession of an offensive weapon in a public place, namely a baton. William Cantello, 24, of Trinity Church Lane, Cowes, admitted a fray. They appeared together at the Isle of Wight Magistrates Court on Monday, April the 28th. The offences occurred on March the 16th. Hampshire and Isle of Wight Constabulary were called at 6:45 p.m. to reports of a public order incident in Newport Bus Station. Police believed a knife may have been involved, as one was said to have been seized nearby. Police were also at South View and East View, where a cordon was put in place. Bowling Green Lane, the alleyway which runs from Newport Bus Station to Upper St James Street, was also cordoned off. No other evidence was produced at the hearing. All 3 men were all bailed with conditions not to contact each other or go to Newport Bus Station. Sentencing is on July the 3rd.
Quicker to go to mainland for operation. A woman suffering with agonising hip pain said she found it was quicker to travel to the mainland for an NHS hip replacement than wait to have it done on the island. Keen swimmer and cyclist Lindsay Pickering, 70, was told she would not be able to have an operation on the island for 2 years, laying bare the lengthy backlog in appointments here. Unable to cope with the pain and using a walking stick for support, Lindsay sought advice from her GP, who said surgery would likely be much sooner on the mainland. Just 2 weeks later, Lindsay received a referral to Practice Plus Group Hospital, Southampton, and crossed the Solent for an NHS appointment with a hip specialist. The hospital treats both NHS and private patients. Lindsay, a holiday cottage business owner, said, I'm the sort of person who just gets on with things. I realised, though, that I couldn't go on as I was so gladly accepted the mainland referral. Lindsay said altogether the whole waiting time was around 3 months. I was at home a week before Christmas after 24 hours in hospital, completely pain-free, she said. I enjoyed a very quick recovery time, returning 6 weeks later for signing off. Although I'm looked after by Practice Plus Group for a year should I have any future problems. The physio team seemed very pleased with my progress, as were Mr. Parker and the nursing team, who also remembered me when I had my review. Since her surgery, Lindsay has returned to her regular C-dips. The whole experience has been life-changing, and I'm really very grateful for the care I've received, said Lindsay. John Crisp, hospital director, said, "We're so delighted to see the remarkable change in Lindsay. We are sympathetic to the hospital teams on the Isle of Wight, who work very hard to treat patients. Practice Plus Group works with the NHS and Isle of Wight GPs to help relieve some of its waiting list burden. Practice Plus Group has 2 hospitals located in Hampshire, in Southampton and Portsmouth."
Sanctuary mourns white lion Casper. The Isle of Wight's Wild Heart Animal Sanctuary is mourning the death of a much-loved resident and one of the last remaining male white lions in the UK, Casper. Following a recent deterioration in health, Casper, 18, was put to sleep under veterinary advice yesterday. He leaves behind his half-sister and lifelong companion, Frosty. Born on August the 24th, 2006 at West Midlands Safari Park to 2 parents that originated from Timbavati in South Africa, Casper arrived at the sanctuary in January 2010. He was joined by Frosty a few years later. The pair were well known for their striking white coats. Casper's roar was also distinctive and could be heard for miles around. Big cat carer Sandra said, "Working with Casper has been a profound experience for sanctuary staff and volunteers alike. He commanded respect and admiration, but those who knew him best will also tell you about his gentle side, not just in the patience and trust he gave his carers, but also his sister Frosty. And as one of the last remaining male white lions in the UK, Casper was an ambassador for all lions and a key figure at the sanctuary."
100 snared in police op. A 2-day police operation on the island identified hundreds of motoring offences. More than 200 driving offences were identified in the space of 2 days as part of proactive efforts to tackle motoring offences on the roads. Between Thursday, May the 1st, and Friday, May the 2nd, mainland-based Roads Policing Unit (RPU) officers joined the Isle of Wight's RPU and dual-skilled armed response roads policing officers as part of an enforcement operation. The operation centred on a zero-tolerance approach to offences on the road network, with a particular focus on Fatal 4 offences. Fatal 4 refers to the driving habits which pose the greatest risk of leading to a serious or fatal collision, and include drink and drug driving, driving without a seatbelt, speeding, and mobile phone use. Officers using unmarked cars and motorbikes dealt with 225 offences. A significant number of Fatal 4 offences were identified in addition to speeding drivers and motorists driving carelessly.
Firefighters put out a recycling centre fire. Firefighters attended a fire in a recycling unit at the largest tip on the island on Sunday. 3 fire crews attended the fire at the Linbottom Household Waste Recycling Centre on Bridlesford Road, Downend. Hampshire and Isle of Wight Fire and Rescue were called at around 10 a.m. Crews attended a fire in a sorting area for textiles, spending more than an hour dampening the smouldering material in the large building. Crews from Newport, Ryde and Ventnor extinguished the fire using 2 main jets and a ground monitor before the scene was handed back to the sales manager.
Accused of online sex chat. A man accused of initiating a sexual conversation with an undercover police officer, posing as a 14-year-old, wants a jury trial. Richard Wetherick of Nelson Lane, Ryde, pleaded not guilty to a charge of attempting to engage in sexual communication with a child on October the 19th, 2022. The child was actually an undercover police officer posing as a 14-year-old. Mr. Wetherick appeared at the Isle of Wight Magistrates Court on Friday, May the 2nd. Magistrates accepted jurisdiction for a trial, but the 48-year-old elected for a judge and jury hearing. He was bailed to reappear for a plea and trial preparation hearing at the Isle of Wight Crown Court on June the 2nd.
Shoplifter punched manager. A shoplifter punched a waitress manager in the face. Liam Matthews of Spinnaker Close, Cowes, appeared before the Isle of Wight magistrates on April the 29th. The 23-year-old admitted assault by beating and 2 counts of theft. In East Cowes on February the 6th, prosecutor Lauren MacDonald and Matthews entered Waitrose and concealed bottles of alcohol in his trousers. She said he removed the tags, took £105 worth of goods and was confronted by a team manager. Miss MacDonald told the bench Matthews was asked to remove the bottles from his trousers and denied taking anything and was verbally aggressive. He went on to accuse the manager of wanting to see his penis, and when the staff member quipped that he probably wouldn't see it, Matthews punched him in the face. Matthews left his victim with a split lip and knocked his glasses and headset off his head. Miss MacDonald said he went on to enter the nearby co-op and stole lager and meat to the value of £9.30. Matthews, who was subject of a community order, saw his case adjourned to June the 24th. He was granted conditional bail and must not enter Waitrose or the co-op in East Cowes.
Thousands saddle up for Randonnée. Thousands of cyclists took to the roads on Sunday for the popular Isle of Wight Randonnée 2025. The annual event showcases the island's scenic lanes and coastlines, with 3,000 cyclists participating. Cyclists had the choice of the 100km or 55km routes, following the round the island route in a clockwise direction. Organisers said, "We had 3,000 participants register this year, and we'd like to thank each of them for their generous donations, both online and at the checkpoints. It's only through the donations and badge sales that we can maintain the Randonnée in its current form and, more importantly, support local charities. We'd also like to thank the local community for their support, businesses and villages that let us use their premises and schools for providing the feed stations. Thank you all."
Several weeks of disruption on the roads from Monday by Oliver Dyer. Monday will see the start of 2 months of disruption on one of the island's main road networks. Horsebridge Hill between Newport and Cowes turns one way until July the 4th. It means instead of travelling the usual 2.5 miles, motorists coming from Newport will instead have to go via a 6-mile diversion to get to Cowes. And while traffic coming from Cowes to Newport will still be able to go via Horsebridge Hill, motorists heading the other way towards Cowes will be diverted via Forest Road, White House Road, Rolls Hill and Pallants Road. The Isle of Wight Council has said a one-way system around the roadwork site has been chosen for 2 reasons. Due to the volume of traffic, traffic lights will cause more disruption. They will only let a few cars through at a time, and if the exit is not clear, the other lane of traffic will not be able to move through freely when their lights are on green. Shutting one carriageway allows more workers and plant machinery to be on site and working on various jobs at once, and it will be safer for the work crews too. During the roadworks, buses will have priority and will be able to pass through the roadworks in both directions as normal between 6 a.m. and 8 p.m. each day. This will come as a relief to students and parents who lamented the disruption during exam time. A crew member will be on site to ensure that buses get through, the council said. Emergency services will also be able to use the road network in both directions during this time. The road is turning one way to aid the construction of the island's largest affordable housing development in a decade. Situated on a greenfield site at Acorn Farm, Captiva Homes and Sovereign Network Group are building 131 houses and 72 flats. The road closure is necessary to allow for junction improvement works. Works will be paused during the Isle of Wight festival. The council said that due to the number of parties involved and various contracts in place, the plan was only signed off recently, and all parties involved apologise for the short notice.
New trail celebrates Dickens. A new walk has been launched on the Isle of Wight to celebrate the connections between Charles Dickens and the island. The Dickens Trail is the latest in a series of popular walks including the Tennyson Trail and the Warhorse Trail, and the launch was attended by 24 members of the Dickens family on Saturday. Additionally, an Isle of Wight Heritage Blue plaque was unveiled by Isle of Wight High Sheriff Jackie Gazzard at the entrance of the Royal Hotel in Ventnor, where Dickens once stayed. Ian Dickens, the author's great-great-grandson, joked that a gathering of Dickens family members should be collectively known as a noise of Dickens. The trail was drafted up by Ian Dickens, David Howarth of the Isle of Wight Ramblers, and Isle of Wight historian Sue Loday, and has been sponsored by Visit Isle of Wight and Southern Vexis. Additionally, there has been support from the Royal Hotel. The trail covers a distance of 6.3 miles from Shanklin over the Downs into Ventnor and Bonchurch. The trail will be a feature of the Spring Isle of Wight Walking Festival, which runs from May the 10th to 18th. Both the Dickens Trail walks have sold out and have a waiting list. Charles Dickens stayed at the Royal Hotel in 1838 and resided at Bonchurch for 3 months across the summer of 1849, where he wrote several chapters of David Copperfield. It is said that several of Dickens's characters were based on Bonchurch locals he met. When on the island, he observed the variety of walks is extraordinary. A leaflet is also available detailing the walk and the Dickens history of the area. For more walks, look into the options available at this year's Isle of Wight Walking Festival.
No shows leaving to local restaurants out of pocket by Alex Cooper. A popular restaurant has slammed block booking tactics after over half of its bookings fail to show up. The Bistro on Pier Street, Ventnor, run by Jane and Andy Holloway, said they had 14 cancellations and no-shows on Easter Saturday, resulting in a loss that night for the business. Andy, head chef at the restaurant, and said block bookings are a tactic used by visitors to the island to ensure they can get a table close to wherever they are that day. He said people block book when they are on holiday, and wherever they are, they go to that one. They know it's busy, so they block book. The biggest chains may be able to take the hit, but that table of 4 is our profit for the night. Andy also pointed to the challenges that Ventnor faces already, with several road closures, increased taxation on second homes and the ferries. He said, "A lot of our trade is from second homeowners, but they're not coming as much due to the ferries and the cost of living crisis. Since Leeson Road happened, there's been a knock-on effect." Andy said, "The bistro is not the only business affected by no-shows, with several others in Ventnor and across the island also reporting bookings where no one showed up." He said, "At one point we thought someone was doing this as a wind-up. It's the difference between profit and loss for the night. It's detrimental to the business. The no-shows mean that Andy and Jane have a disproportionate amount of staff in the restaurant and fresh ingredients to cook, with all contributing to less profit through no fault of their own." Andy said, "It's very short summer and a very long winter. We have to make hay while the sun shines. It's either all or nothing, and obviously the ferries don't help." Ventnor has recently been marred with road closures, pavement closures, and even rock falls, all of which have an impact on its economy. Now, block booking tactics and no-shows appear to add to more strain on the town's restaurants.
Kayaker thanks her hero rescuers. A kayaker has shared her experience of getting stuck at sea for the better part of 7 hours, forced to call the Coast Guard for rescue when she found herself paddling with all her might and making no progress. Leslie Davison from Shanklin moved to the island from Vancouver, Canada last May and has been kayaking for over 7 years. The 65-year-old is keen to thank the Coast Guard members who came to her rescue when she found herself in trouble near Ventnor on Tuesday, April the 29th. "I started from Shanklin at around 10 a.m. and got to Ventnor within an hour and a half," said the experienced kayaker. "I've done the trip many times before and the waters were calm, but when I turned around to head back to Shanklin, I only got as far as Lower Ventnor. I kept paddling for almost 3 hours with all my might and couldn't get around the corner. I couldn't figure out why. It seemed like I was at a standstill. Eventually, by 4:30 p.m, I was getting quite tired and concerned. The wind and the waves were going every which way, and I was paddling like crazy and wasn't getting anywhere. Being embarrassed, I called the Coast Guard, and I've been wanting to thank them profusely for their assistance. They were so marvellous and took such good care of me. It's important, especially at this time of year, to be aware of the dangers and importance of safety. It's never happened to me before in all my years of kayaking. As my husband said, you think you know it all, but this was nature saying, well, you don't. I won't stop kayaking, and my rescuer said I did everything right, but I definitely need to educate myself. You can't stop because of fear, you have to use it as a lesson." A Coast Guard spokesperson said, "A kayaker reported to be in difficulty east of Ventnor at around 4:20 p.m. on April the 29th, was recovered to land safe and well by the inshore lifeboat from Sandown. Ventnor Coast Guard rescue team was also sent."
A new song to celebrate Walk the Wight. A famous musician has joined forces with Isle of Wight choirs to release a song celebrating Mountbatten's Walk the Wight. The song Walk the Wight with You is performed by Mike Christie of Quartet G4 alongside the Isle of Wight Cantara Choir and the Mountbatten Community Choir. The uplifting number even features Mountbatten CEO Nigel Hartley on piano. Mike said, "I am truly honoured to be an ambassador for Mountbatten Isle of Wight. It gives me such joy to sing to islanders at the hospice helping create positive and happy memories for them and their families and friends. Mr. Hartley said, "I was honoured to be able to be a part of this project in celebration of one of the most important events in Mountbatten and the Isle of Wight's year. Walk the Wight will take place on Sunday. To register or to take part, visit Mountbatten's website. The county press will be live blogging the event as thousands of people complete the walk from Bembridge to Allen Bay. Registration on the day is a suggested donation of £20.
Action-packed weekend for bikers. The Whitelink CRT MTB squad enjoyed some action-packed racing. Nicholas Early, Ewan Cook and Alfie Hayden travelled to Wales to compete in the second round of the National XC MTB Championships at Margam Park. The course was described as very hilly and technical, with fast, rocky descents and long rock climbs. Alfie had a promising start, but landed on jagged rocks after a drop, puncturing both his front and rear tyres. This mishap ended his chances, and he finished in 27th place. Ewan put in a strong performance and secured a respectable 9th place. Nicholas, in the Open Expert category, started well, but on his third lap he crashed hard after slipping out on the corner, landing on his head. This ended his race, but fortunately his injuries were mainly superficial. Junior rider Mackenzie Cook competed at Queen Elizabeth Country Park, Petersfield, in the second round of the Southern Enduro Series. This was Mackenzie's first race on a new bike, and, unfortunately, on stage 3, he went over the bars into a pile of logs covered in brambles and singing nettles, suffering a jarred wrist.
They're the Best in the Business by Liam Chorley. Isle of Wight businesses are celebrating after being recognised with King's Awards for Enterprise, the highest accolade awarded to a UK business. Those on the Isle of Wight to pick up an award were Datum Electronics, HTP Apprenticeship College, Parsons and Colson Consultants and the Garlic Farm. Receiving the King's Award for Enterprise is a real milestone for us, said Michael Irons, Managing Director of Datum Electronics. The East Cowes firm has been designing and manufacturing precision measurement systems for over 30 years, supporting industries ranging from shipbuilding and renewable energy to heavy industry and research. It's recognition not just of our international growth, but of the hard work, skill and commitment of the entire team, past and present, who have helped us grow from a small island company into a global competitor, said Michael. We're incredibly proud to represent the island and to show the world-class innovation and manufacturing can thrive right here. Jonathan Thornton of PC Consultants said, "It is truly something of a pinch-me moment in our 30-plus year history. We have always believed our service and the way we work with our customers were different, but this is only made possible by our amazing team. My own journey started in the workshop nearly 25 years ago, with no formal qualifications or experience. I have had opportunities I would never have dreamed of, working in an industry I love. But it all started with two friends, our founders Sean Colson and Mike Parsons, the P&C of PC Consultants, who both share a passion for technology and wanted others to share them. This award recognises the DNA of PC Consultants and why it means so much. To all our customers, team and partners, we couldn't do it without you. Thank you."
Now moving on to White's Memories, starting with an article headlined Spitfire Girls' Remarkable Legacy. Last week we featured the first part of this feature on Peggy Lucas. Here we find out more about her eventful life. A local RAF pilot, soon after takeoff, crashed a tiger moth into a hedge on the Sandown to Bembridge Road. His mother, on her first flight, was badly shaken. Peggy rushed to the accident and got an ambulance. The county press reported, the mother and son were taken to County Hospital, Ryde, and later discharged. More drama followed the next day. A young man hired an Oster autocrat to add to his solo flying hours. Peggy told him to stay in sight, but he flew off. When he didn't return, she phoned RAF lookout posts across the south for news of him. Eventually, he was located in the New Forest at a disused airfield. Peggy managed to fend off press inquiries, and the search for the County Press archive confirms it never was reported, proof that she did keep reporters at bay. This is remarkable because a year earlier, an almost identical Ulster autocrat theft from Bembridge by a teenage boy made newspaper headlines across Britain. That young Camphill boy, Brindley Fussell, years later gained national folk hero status of bad boy turned good. Peggy never named her young pilot, so the question remains, did Fussell strike again 1 year later, or was the 1950 flyaway a copycat? Peggy's errant lad had intended to crash the plane to commit suicide. Her recollection tone was of the immense worry the distressed boy had given her. If she feared losing her job, she was reassured by Jeff Thomas the next day. He knew her rogue pilot, and when the lad was brought back with the Oster, Jeff gave him a very stern lecture. The rest of her time at Bembridge passed without major incident, and she enjoyed her summer on the island. The season over, she worked for a few more weeks at Cowes Aero Club for Captain Randall Ward.
At the same time, Peggy's ATA friend Mary Wilkins Ellis was working at Sandown Airport as commandant. Peggy never mentioned one terrifying incident from her Bembridge summer. Possibly it was all in a day's work to her, just like her wartime Spitfire years, so not that noteworthy. Nonetheless, it was a big local event and made headline news across Britain. What she witnessed from the air in July 1950 was eventually investigated by MI5. She was the only pilot who took aerial photographs of a major explosion in Gosport. The blasts shook the island. That incident will be recalled in the county press later this year. Peggy Lucas, Eveleigh. Grace was a remarkable woman. Indomitable, tireless, she married 4 times and divorced 3 times. After her Isle of Wight summer, she went on to win air races in Britain and became a chief flying instructor. She taught flying in Austria and flew passengers on sightseeing alpine flights. She owned and ran riding stables in Studland in Dorset. She quite literally climbed mountains with her mountaineering Austrian 4th husband. She conquered that danger too, and during her retirement years she helped at a riding stables in Corsica and Austria and wrote books. Aged 76, she had her first helicopter flying lesson at Oxford, where she landed Spitfires and Mustangs during the war. Peggy remembered with gratitude the opportunity she was given by Bembridge Flying Club and by Jeff Thomas. The Isle of Wight helped her career to take flight. My meetings with her, the phone calls and her letters were memorable. This tribute is to one of the great generation of the Second World War who we remember this 80th anniversary of VE Day.
On to public information with an article by Richard Quigley, MP for Isle of Wight West, headlined Roundtable Shows the Government is Listening. It was a pleasure to welcome Maritime Minister Mike Kane to Cowes recently for the first ever roundtable of its kind to discuss the island's ferries. In March, I was able to convey to the Secretary of State for Transport just how bad things have got and how little has been done by previous successive governments. So, my thanks to the Secretary of State and the Minister for agreeing to host the roundtable. It shows this government is listening and the first to really grasp how bad the situation is. The Council, both ferry companies, hover travel, ambulance service, Chamber of Commerce, Visit Isle of Wight, and both MPs attended. Collectively, we spoke on behalf of islanders, and together we made sure that the Minister left with no illusions. Things must change. The Minister took away several actions, and the Department for Transport will be exploring a range of measures, including looking at timetabling, the social impact on islanders, and dynamic pricing. It's not the magic wand plenty hoped for, but let me be clear, this is just the start. Since becoming an MP, I've had the privilege of welcoming numerous schools to the House of Commons. Schools, colleges and home-educated students can arrange visits and tours of Parliament free of charge. And the UK Parliament, through its outreach service, provides grants to help with travel costs. Because of our location, Isle of Wight West schools are eligible for the maximum grant, and I recently wrote to schools across the constituency to encourage them to apply. Seeing island students experience Parliament and democracy in action is truly inspiring, and a reminder of why breaking down barriers to opportunity and learning about our history is so important. Like many of you, I took part in events this week to mark the 80th anniversary and celebrate VE Day. As the number of those who lived through the war diminishes, it's even more important that we never forget what they went through. Hearing veterans share their own memories is a reminder of their extraordinary heroism and sacrifice. We literally wouldn't have the freedoms we do today if it wasn't for them. We will remember them. Sadly, you'll also know that 17-year-old Arlo Lambie recently died. With Arlo's parents' blessing, I raised the question with the Health Secretary in the Commons. I asked how the NHS can better access breakthrough cancer treatments and ensure that the commercial interests of pharmaceutical companies never take precedence over the needs of children with cancer. I want to thank Arlo's parents, Alex and Ellie, for working with me to make sure I captured their message accurately. I also know that they'll want readers to know how grateful they are to the amazing staff at St Mary's.
6-year-old Charlie, billed as UK's youngest wrestler, by John Moreno. A 6-year-old Isle of Wight boy is believed to be the UK's youngest wrestling performer. Charlie Jennings from Cowes, aka the Chaos Kid, opened the Outcast Pro Wrestling's Easter show at the Bay School in Sandown. It was a landmark for the youngster. His mum, Hayley Attrell, said, "I used to watch wrestling on the telly, and as Charlie got a bit older, I took him to an Outcast Pro Wrestling show in May last year. Going to that ignited a passion in him. He just came alive." Hayley then took Charlie, aged 5 at the time, along to an open day at the Outcast Pro Wrestling Academy, and he did a trial session. He just loved it, and he's been going to training there ever since. Charlie, the club's youngest member, attends Lanes End Primary School. He is not yet old enough to compete, but he does performance wrestling. The club's head coach, wrestler Matt Jackson, aka Jackson Arrow, trains wrestlers of all skills, levels and ages, starting from 7, with the exception of Charlie. The club has adapted its coaching to cater for Charlie's age and size. He's shorter than most, Hayley joked, but the coaches are so good, teaching him discipline, respect, good technique and how to do wrestling safely in a friendly environment. Charlie is such a hit at the academy, he was invited to take part in the Outcast Academy show, watched by more than 100 wrestling fanatics, which included his mum, brother and grandparents. The family show featured trainees taking on adults, with Charlie opening it against 17-year-old Corey Ace. When Charlie appeared from behind a curtain to Kaiser's Chiefs One Predict a Riot, there was a raucous applause and cheering. He entertained the crowd and got them going. Oh, they loved it, Haley continued. He was high-flying everyone, standing on the ropes, continued Haley. His favourite part was coming out through the curtain and the crowd cheering him. Charlie was shy before he started doing wrestling, said Haley. He now wants to be a WWE wrestler when he's older. I'd be happy to see him do it, definitely.
Now moving on to What's On, which is starting on Saturday 24th of May. Family Farm Tours 2025 at 11 a.m. from the 24th of May to the 31st of May. Daily at 11 a.m. May the 24th to May the 31st at the Garlic Farm Shop and Restaurant, Mersey Lane, Newchurch. Inquiries at thegarlicfarm.co.uk or on 01983 865 378. Tickets are £5. On the 25th of May, Cowell's Concert Band at 3 p.m. Brass Band Concert, Ralstone Gardens, 11 Popham Road, Shanklin. And on the 28th of May, family supper with magical entertainment at 6 o'clock. Tickets £2.50. Join us Wednesday evenings in the school holidays for a family-friendly evening in our restaurant with entertainment from our wonderful and talented local magician, Huxley Magic, at the Garlic Farm Shop and Restaurant, Mersey Lane, Sandown. Inquiries at thegarlicfarm.co.uk or on 01983 865 378.
A retired Ireland professor receives a prestigious award by Kieran Wiggs. A retired professor and sailor has been recognised for his work as an examiner. Professor Colin Ockleford, who lives in Bembridge, was awarded the Harold Ellis Prize by the Royal College of Surgeons of England. The award is given to a basic sciences examiner who has shown exceptional commitment and contributions over the past 2 years. Professor Ockleford was presented with the award at the college's annual Court of Examiners Day by the chairman of the court, Yasser Mersen, and the president of the college, Tim Mitchell. Professor Ockleford said, "It was a great pleasure to receive this award. I have really enjoyed my time on the Court of Examiners, carrying out a very worthwhile role in retirement, particularly since COVID, helping to clear the exams backlog when many young doctors' career plans take a back seat has been rewarding. The institutional effort that this has taken is a fine example of the Royal College of Surgeons of England's professional caring and responsive qualities. Its expanding international role at the time is a reflection of the high regard its qualifications are held in on the world stage." Professor Ockleford was the Foundation Professor in Human Anatomy and Director of the Clinical Anatomy Learning Centre at Lancaster University's Medical School from 2006 until 2013. He has taught anatomy since 1976 at undergraduate level to medical students and later to postgraduates preparing for FRCS, MRCS and FRCOG entry pathway exams. He was elected to the Court of Examiners by the Royal College of Surgeons of England in 2011 to examine basic sciences for the gateway exam for qualified doctors wishing to pursue a career in surgery. He has since examined in the UK, Abu Dhabi, Cairo, Hyderabad and Kuala Lumpur. Professor Ogwood has also been an external examiner at several universities, including Cambridge, University College London, Sheffield, Liverpool and Leeds. He was the founder, educator, chairman of the Anatomical Society of Great Britain and Ireland, where he set up an International Anatomical Society summer school in Oxford. He has co-authored papers by the Anatomical Society that have informed acceptance cure curricula for both anatomy and embryology medical undergraduates nationwide.
Trance icon to put on alfresco show. A popular live music venue has announced its first outdoor show with seminal trance artist Chicane performing at Robin Hill Adventure Park. Strings Bar and Venue in Newport will bring the renowned trance originator to the recently relaunched attraction for a special alfresco show. This follows two sold-out nights at Strings in January. Chicane, known for hits such as Offshore and Saltwater, is set to perform his Sunsets show on Friday, September the 5th. The DJ, musician and composer, his real name Nicholas Bracegirdle, will play two sets, one of them at sunset, to pay homage to his Ibiza roots. The event will have a festival-like feel, reminiscent of festival, with food and drink available throughout the evening. A spokesperson for Strings said, "The shows we did with Nick back in January were incredible. You could see from the reaction of the audience that it was a special moment."
Next section, Sunday the 11th of May, Walk the White, 6 a.m, £10. Walk the White for Mountbatten, raising money for the hospice and enjoying the beautiful scenery of the island while you do it from Bembridge Airport, Bembridge, Lucy Morgan, and this is an email address here. It's capital LUCY .Morgan, lowercase, at mountbatten.org.uk 217339.
And now moving on to readers' letters, starting with a letter from Angela Harris of Ryde, titled "Ferries Charge What They Like." Crossing on the Solent, we have a monopoly of mode of transport, and within that mode a duopoly in car ferry services. This allows the ferry companies to charge what they like, as the vast majority of people travel in peak periods, for example school holidays and bank holiday weekends, while there is a finite amount of car spaces available on the ferries. Transport for London in London uses congestion charging, while the island ferry companies are doing the same due to restricted spaces, and through booking online the congestion charge can inflate in minutes at times, making the cost of car ferry travel only affordable for the luxury of holidays for many visiting, while island children are missing out in aiding their education and sporting opportunities. First middle schools and now primary schools are closing. Meanwhile, the island young have voted with their feet, as they don't come back after further education because they want a life. The island demographics have changed, now being top-heavy due to those wanting a slower pace of life and retiring here. Dinosaurs died out as they didn't adapt and change. Is that what those with power to make a change want for the future of the island?
Three small things here. Sunday 18th, the Shanklin Town Brass Band at 3 p.m. The Brass Band Concert, Ralston Gardens at 11 Popham Road, Shanklin. Saturday the 17th, the Isle of Wight Boat Jumble at 10 a.m. The Boat Jumble event raising funds for the RNLI Newport Carnival and Ride Sea Cadets. From pitch fees and donations, County Showground Newport Road, Northwood. And again, this is an email address, lowercase, heather@hvc.org.uk. Phone number 079 684 01322. and The Legend of the Music of Bob Marley, live at 7:30 p.m. on the 16th of May, Friday, at 7:30 p.m. It's £29. And when you think reggae, there is only one name that comes to mind: Legend. The music of Bob Marley is an unforgettable evening, celebrating the musical icon in one fantastic stage show extravaganza, the Shanklin Theatre, Prospect Road, Shanklin. Again, another email address in lowercase, info@acku.pevents, that's pevents.co.uk, 566837.
Grim Sight of Traffic Wardens by J. Wood of Newport. May I, on behalf of Isle of Wight residents, send a heartfelt apology to all the visitors attending the children's popular football matches at Seaclose at the weekend. After a perfect sunny day enjoying the sport, it must have been a bitter disappointment for the teams to arrive back at their cars to find the familiar yellow parking tickets on their windscreens. Why didn't the council provide adequate parking, or at least abandon parking charges for the 2 days? It was a grim sight seeing not one, not two, but 3 traffic wardens heading back to base. Mission accomplished.
The last section here. Moan about us humans, not gulls. Ryde resident. I read with amusement the letter regarding the feeding of seagulls in Shanklin. I would like to know where seagulls are meant to live, if not at the seaside. It's akin to moaning about people inhabiting houses. Having said that, which species graffiti buildings leave hotels along Sandown seafront in such a state of disrepair? It's beginning to resemble Syria. Drop food wrappers outside houses. McDonald's seem to be a favourite. Fight each other when drunk. We are seen to want to keep tearing up the countryside to provide homes for this species. Maybe if the commercial destruction of the sea was managed correctly, there would be natural food left for the gulls. The gulls may be a nuisance, but they are a symptom of a problem caused by the species who is master at doing the very things they are accusing the gulls of.
Tinted Windows Caused Upset by Tony Lilly of Seaview. Another nail in the coffin of the relationship between the police and the public. Last Thursday, my wife and I drove into the car park at Tesco in Ryde and noticed a gaggle of police traffic officers sitting by their vehicles, enjoying lunch in the sunshine. Nothing unusual, except by the time I had parked, one of the officers had managed to drop his sandwich and sprint over to meet me as I opened my car door. The reason for the instant response wasn't theft, violence or murder, or extortion. Far worse. The officer had spotted that my driver and passenger window tints were darker than the law allowed. He then produced a gadget to measure the tint, and, when this proved his theory, his face lit up. He had not cut his lunch short for anything trivial. He now had the right to embarrass and belittle a member of the public over a tinted window, no less. The vehicle in question was purchased with the window tints already in place, and had passed every MOT with no problem, so I was totally unaware of the infringement. Not wanting to be a lawbreaker, I offered to have the tints changed or removed in the next few days, and supply evidence that this had been done. The officer could barely contain his excitement as he informed me that the car would have to be impounded if the tints were not removed immediately. In addition, despite not knowing I was doing anything wrong, I would be fined. The officer offered to remove the tint himself as a favour to me, so that I could drive home, and I couldn't have been happier to see him legally vandalise my car. In the past 2 years I have called on the police after incidents of theft and violent crime, neither of which resulted in attendance by the police or any action whatsoever. Let's hope that the violent criminals and thieves have tinted windows so the law can start to bring them to heel. If they don't, then you're on your own.
Go ahead and move the rock. David Orrell, Ventnor. Why can't the council be proactive and clear, make safe and reopen where the fallen rock on Belgrave Road in Ventnor has occurred? Notwithstanding this would greatly benefit businesses and the public, especially those who have mobility issues for access, but it would relieve the weight pressure it must be imposing on the road. I am no structural engineer, but surely this excessive dead weight could give rise to incurring further slippage problems to this unstable area. If the council's inaction excuse is land ownership, be proactive, carry out the work, bill the landowner for insurance purposes and repayment. Then at least it would solve businesses and the public's access misery.
Dysfunctional Voting System by Andrew Grand of Carisbrooke. The local elections once again showed how damaging and dysfunctional our voting system is. Across the country, many results don't reflect how people voted. For example, in the west of England, the mayor was elected with a quarter of the vote. This is not a glitch in the system, it's a feature. Whether in local or in general elections, first past the post, FPTP, distorts public opinion and damages trust in politics. It forces us to choose between voting tactically and being ignored, and leads to millions of votes, particularly those cast for smaller parties, being wasted. Time and again, it hands full control to parties supported by a minority of the electorate. Last year, Labour won a landslide in Parliament on just 34% of the vote. With more and more people abandoning the two biggest parties, the proportion of votes needed to win next time could be even smaller. In 2029, we could easily get a government by a party that 70% of the public voted against. It becomes more like a lottery than an election. I'm very concerned about the future of our democracy if we don't improve how our elections work. FPTP needs to be replaced with a proportional system where seats match votes and all voices are heard equally.
This is the end of our session today. We look forward to seeing you the next time. Thank you.
The BBC In Touch programme follows and the scaffolding news follows that. Scaffolding and skips news for the week commencing the 9th of May 2025 in the Newport area, Fabian Barber's Shop, Pyle Street, Guildhall, Quayside, Quay Street, Cafe Isola, St James's Street.
The Ride area, 35 High Street, Bembridge, Aspire, 35 to 36 High Street, 37 High Street, Cross Street, 2 Union Street. Ride area skips, The Lodge, Fairy Road, Seaview, 28 Abingdon Road.
In the Ventnor area at Church Street, the Taverners, God's Hill, 44 High Street, and in the Ventnor area skips 18 Ocean View Road.
The Sandown area, Viv's Cooking, 9 High Street, the Montpellier Hotel, 5 Pier Street. The Sandown area skips Station Avenue, 46 Fitzroy Street.
Hello, this is Lisa, CEO of Site for White and White Sense, welcoming you to this week's Talking News on Friday the 9th of May 2025. As I record this, I'm actually at Newport Scout Hut. We are preparing for our VE Day celebration this afternoon on Thursday. We're looking forward to welcoming everybody here with the sun shining. The newsletter is at the printers at the moment and we're expecting it back next Monday. In the covering letter, we have talked about our befriending service. This is open to anybody, and it's just a weekly, fortnightly or monthly call from a friendly person, because often just having somebody to talk to can really help. If you're interested in the befriending service, please do contact the office and we can talk about it and give you all the details. Also included in the covering letter is details on our new contents page that will actually start in the next issue of the newsletter. From feedback, it's been suggested that we put a contents pages in so people can look and read the articles of interest first. We're hoping you find this useful. Thank you, everybody. Stay safe and enjoy the sunshine. Lisa, CEO, Sight for White and White Sense.
This is Michael reading an article from Island Echo. New routes and firm favourites ready for Isle of Wight Spring Walking Festival. There are just days to go until the start of the Spring Isle of Wight Walking Festival 2025, 10th to the 18th of May, which sees an incredible showcase of new walks as well as popular routes. The multi-award-winning Isle of Wight Walking Festival, proudly sponsored by Europe's largest outdoor activity and tourism digital platform, Outdoor Active, is a popular event on the walking calendar and attracts visitors to the island from across the UK and Europe. Over 80 walks can be enjoyed, and while some routes are already at capacity, it is still possible to discover and book many others via the Isle of Wight Walking Festival website and make the most of the unique UNESCO Biosphere Reserve landscape of the Isle of Wight. A particular favourite of the Isle of Wight Walking Festival is the part of the Warrior Trail, which takes in the countryside where the original warhorse, named Warrior, spent his days with his owner, General Jack Seeley. The walk will be led by the General's great-great-nephew, Bob Seeley. The circular walk, which starts and finishes at the National Trust car park, Motterston Gardens, with non-seated stops, where Bob shares stories of his family and the area. Monday the 12th of May sees a most unusual event for a walking festival, titled A Sit-Down Tour, the Dickens Family Holiday Inn, Bonchurch, 1849, where non-walkers and walkers can enjoy a new 6-mile Dickens trail that starts in Shanklin and ends in Ventnor without moving an inch. Dickens' descendants gathered in Ventnor to launch the trail on Saturday. Fitness fanatics who like to go that bit further could join the In-Step Resistance Walking Group, where participants are given a pair of resistance walking bands to wear on their legs whilst walking 3 miles. Certainly one for those who like an additional cardio and strengthening workout. Celebrating 35 years, Walk the Wight is a charity event, raises money for local hospice Mountbatten and takes place during the Spring Isle of Wight Walking Festival, with participants opting to walk half or the entire 26.5 miles across the Isle of Wight. The Spring and Autumn Isle of Wight Walking Festivals are organised by Visit Isle of Wight and only made possible through the Wight BID, B-I-D, bringing additional income outside of the traditional peak summer season, whilst highlighting the island as one of the premier walking destinations in the UK and showcasing the incredible views, history and culture that visitors can enjoy. To encourage the sustainability message of the Isle of Wight Walking Festival, many of the walks start at or near bus routes and train stations. Amy Summers, Head of Marketing and Sustainability, said, "This year's Isle of Wight Spring Walking Festival is a fantastic opportunity to get out and enjoy the stunning scenery of our beautiful island, to leave the car behind and take in history and the natural wonders of the Isle of Wight. My continued thanks to the army of volunteers and local businesses that make the festival a truly special event for everyone to enjoy. With over 1,000 registered walkers signed up to take part in this year's festival, with 76% visiting from mainland UK and overseas, the year's shaping up to be another fantastic festival. With some walks fully booked and limited spaces available, people are being urged to book now to secure a place on their chosen walks during the festival.
This is Petrina reading from the Island Echo. Creative Folklore Project combats isolation in local communities. An independent arts project is bringing residents of Sovereign Network Group housing in East Cowes and Ryde together through folklore, conversation and creativity. Finding Folk was launched earlier this year by Independent Arts in partnership with Sovereign Network Group, SNG, aiming to combat isolation and build stronger community connections. The initiative invites residents from 4 housing sites across the Isle of Wight to take part in light-hearted group craft sessions led by a professional island-based artist. As part of the project, participants are encouraged to share memories, stories and old superstitions, many of which draw on the Isle of Wight's rich tradition of myths and folklore. Residents have also been swapping tales from their own lives, creating space for reflection, laughter and conversation. Kerry Tyndall of Independent Arts has said, "It's a great way to get a conversation going, whether it's about why we count magpies or avoid the number 13. It's amazing how many of us automatically follow superstitions, touching wood and so on. Perhaps it's a bit of a just-in-case precaution." Tony Egland, Community Investment and Partnership Lead in SNG, has said, "At SNG, we are clear that we want the people who live in our community to thrive, and that's why we have taken the decision to fund the Independent Arts, to build resilient communities, combat isolation, and help older people to make those vital connections. The tradition of folk stories being swapped and shared between people down the generations is a great way to get people talking and meet many of these objectives." The Finding Folk project began in January and is set to continue until February 2026.
Mottiston Manor's Long Room opens to public for the first time from the Isle of Wight radio read by Lee. The National Trust has announced that for the first time the Long Room at Mottiston Manor will open to visitors from the 1st of May. Once known as the Great Hall of the Elizabethan Manor House, the Long Room has remained closed to the public, apart from occasional one-off tours until now. It houses a beautifully curated exhibition of the Baroque-style wall hangings created in the 1950s by celebrated church artist Brian Thomas. These richly detailed works were commissioned by Lord John Seeley, 1899 to 1963, son of the First Lord Mottiston, General Jack Seeley, alternatively Galloper Jack, and his partner Paul Paget. Seeley and Paget were not only life partners, but also creative minds behind one of Britain's most celebrated architectural practices of the 20th century. Their restoration of Mottiston Manor in the 1920s, undertaken as their first domestic commission for Seeley's father, set the tone for a distinguished career combining historical sensitivity with artistic flair. Together, they transformed Mottiston into a much-loved private home, infusing it with personal touches that reflected their shared love of art and architecture. The wall hangings in the Long Room, which illustrate John Bunyan's The Pilgrim's Progress, 1678, are playful, symbolic, and deeply personal. Among the ornate patterns, visitors will discover depictions of Seeley and Paget's pets, as well as intricately rendered images of the flowers that once grew in the manor's gardens. While believed to be made of sailcloth, the exact materials used to create the hangings remain unconfirmed. A researcher from Tate Modern is due to visit the site later in this summer to carry out further investigations into their composition, craftsmanship, and hidden stories. In a delightful connection between art and place, many of the plants depicted in the wall hangings, including stocks, Mathiola incarna alba, tobacco plant, Nicotiana sylvestris, pinks, dianthus, pineapple, ananas commosus, and cultivars popular in the 1950s, have recently been replanted by the head gardener near the shack. Looking ahead, Motterston will continue to enrich this living tapestry with the addition of a citrus collection, with propagation already underway in partnership with the National Trust's Plant Conservation Centre. The shack itself, a creative hub for Celia and Paget, is thought to be an early example of a modern outdoor office, or perhaps even a tiny home. Research suggests it was originally sited near the golf club house at Freshwater Bay Golf Club, later relocated for personal reasons to its current position within Motterston's grounds. Whatever its location, it served as an inventive space for creativity and collaboration, blending work and nature long before such ideas became fashionable. This is such a special opportunity to step inside one of the manor's most historical rooms and discover something truly unexpected, says Scott King, site manager at Motterston Gardens and Estate. The wall hangings are beautifully made and full of charm. They capture the spirit of the manor and its remarkable former residents in a really personal way. We're so pleased to be able to share the wall hangings and this enchanting space with our visitors. The long room at Motterston Manor is expected to be open most days from 11 a.m. to 2 p.m. throughout the 2025 season, depending on volunteer capacity.
More than 200 driving offences identified as part of two-day Isle of Wight operation. From Isle of Wight Radio. More than 200 driving offences have been identified in the space of 2 days as part of proactive efforts to tackle offences on the Isle of Wight's roads. Over the course of Thursday the 1st and Friday the 2nd of May, mainland-based Roads Policing Unit officers joined the Isle of Wight's RPU and dual-skilled armed response roads police officers as part of an enforcement operation on the island. The operation focused on a zero-tolerance approach to offences on the road network, with a particular focus on Fatal 4 offences. Fatal 4 refers to the driving habits that pose the greatest risk of leading to a serious or fatal collision, and include drug driving, driving without a seatbelt, speeding, and mobile phone use whilst driving. In total, over the 2 days that the officers were using unmarked cars and motorbikes, they dealt with 225 offences. A significant number of Fatal 4 offences were identified, predominantly driving without seatbelts and mobile phone use behind the wheel, in addition to speeding, drivers and motorists driving carelessly. 3 vehicles were seized for having no insurance. 2 people were dealt with by community resolution for possessing cannabis. A motorcycle was also seized as the driver had no licence. In addition, officers issued a number of tickets to people for other offences, including insecure loads, non-conforming number plates, window tints and exhaust offences. Road safety issues are regularly brought to our attention on the Isle of Wight, as are clearly of concern to island residents. We want you to be reassured that we listen to these concerns and regularly conduct enforcement action to target the minority of drivers whose standards fall far below what is legally expected of them. Police continue to develop and act upon the intelligence around hotspot locations across the island for driving offences. And Hampshire Constabulary are encouraging members of the public to report driving offences and any concerns around driving standards to the police, as this feeds into their intelligence gathering work and helps them keep road users safe.
This is Michael reading an article from Isle of Wight Radio. Innovative Carers for Young People programme honoured with King's Award for Enterprise. Hampshire and Isle of Wight NHS Foundation Trust and HTP Apprenticeship College have both been honoured with the King's Award for Enterprise. The organisations are 2 of 197 nationally to be recognised with a prestigious award. The King's Award for Enterprise has been awarded to recognise the success of the Carers of Young People CFYP programme, designed to tackle the Isle of Wight's unique youth employment challenges. The CFYP has been deployed by Hampshire and Isle of Wight NHS Foundation Trust in partnership with HTP Apprenticeship College. The programme, which received the Promoting Opportunity Award, offers 16 to 18-year-olds a direct route into a wide range of NHS careers. The CFYP welcomed its first cohort in 2022 and has already won a Nursing Times Award and HSJ Partnership Award. The King's Awards for Enterprise recognises outstanding UK businesses and is the most prestigious business award in the country, with successful businesses able to use the esteemed King's Award emblem for the next 5 years. Nicola Longson, Director of Transformation and Improvement at the Trust and founder of the CFYP programme, expressed her pride in the programme's achievements. She reflected on the journey from an initial idea that many doubted to a multi-award-winning initiative, saying, "We've proven that by investing in young people and supporting their development, we can build a sustainable workforce from within." This programme is a perfect example of how we're tackling local employment challenges while also addressing the wider needs of the NHS. I'm particularly proud that we've made this real for young people in our community, giving them opportunities they might not otherwise have had. We're thrilled to have won another award for this programme, which really highlights how successful it has been for people on the island. Rachel Randall, CEO of HTP Apprenticeship College, which is based in Newport on the Isle of Wight, said, "This is an incredible recognition and genuinely highlights the real impact of the Careers for Young People programme and the opportunities we're creating for younger people on the island. Through our partnership, we've seen a significant increase in full-time entrance into health and social care apprenticeships, helping to build a skilled and passionate workforce for the future of the NHS. We're incredibly proud of what we've achieved together and excited for what's to come. The success of the programme means there are plans to expand beyond the NHS, as well as rolling the model out to the mainland. Programmes such as the Careers for Young People programme are vital for growing and providing valuable career opportunities for young people. They also support resilience by building a sustainable workforce for many years to come."
This is Patrina reading from Isle of Wight Radio. Island sailor Arthur Farley sets to compete in World Championships in China. This week sees island sailor Arthur Farley prepare his biggest sailing challenge so far. The ILCA World Championships take place in Qingdao, China, from the 10th to the 17th of May. Arthur was diagnosed with hairy cell leukemia shortly after winning the Under-19s ILCA 7 European Championship in 2022. After many months of treatment in Southampton Hospital and 2 bouts of sepsis and COVID, Arthur had added some sailing titles to an extensive list of trophies. Arthur has turned 21, so this year he will be competing in the men's division in the ILCA 7 at the IACL 7 World Championships in China, a major step on his pathway to the Olympic gold in LA in 2028. Arthur said, "Still to go after the World Championships. I guess this year I will be looking to do well in China and then win my class representing the Isle of Wight at the Island Games and get a personal best in the ILCA 7 Europeans, maybe a top 10 at the World Cup in Kiel. I've still got more to give as I learn how to balance my HCL condition with my training and racing. I'm grateful to my sponsors for their support through some very testing times. A massive thank you to British Sailing, PGM, Olisinki Design, Goodall Roofing, White Link, the Classic Boat Museum Cows, and numerous individual donations. And of course to my mum and dad, who have worked their socks off to make this campaign work for me.
Action Group formed as effort to save Ventnor Winter Gardens gains momentum from the Island Echo, read by Lee. A community meeting is being organised to rally support and develop an action plan to save the iconic Ventnor Winter Gardens amid ongoing concerns over the future of the seafront venue. Steve Withyman is leading the initiative through the newly formed Save Ventnor Winter Gardens Action Group. He has called for a public gathering to take place on Friday the 16th of May between 1800 and 2000 hours at the Better Days Cafe in Ventnor. The aim of the meeting is to move beyond discussion and begin coordinating practical steps to preserve the much-loved building, which has stood empty and deteriorating despite previous efforts and public attention. Steve has said, after all the outcry and recent publicity, still nothing has seemingly happened concerning this iconic building. Time to stop talking and take action. Local councillors will be invited to attend and contribute their views. All residents and supporters of the cause are welcome to join in person or show support online. Organisers say anyone unable to attend can still be kept updated on the discussions and outcomes. Should attendance exceed expectations, an alternative venue may be considered to accommodate larger numbers. The Ventnor Winter Gardens has been a defining feature of the Isle of Wight's southern coastline for decades, but has become a growing concern due to its declining condition and stalled redevelopment efforts. Community interest has surged recently, prompting renewed calls for intervention.
Marine-inspired mural project unveiled at annual Ryde Town Hall meeting from the Island Echo. Plans for an exciting new mural project along Apley seafront were recently revealed by the Isle of Wight Council at Ryde's annual town meeting. The project, called Sheltered Art, Ecology and Belonging on the Apley Coast, sees the collaboration of Isle of Wight artists Alice Malaya and Laura Hathaway, with the project being joint funded by Ryde Town Council, the Isle of Wight Council and Arts Council England. A total of 14 artworks will be painted along Apley seafront to revitalise its neglected shelters, transforming them into a celebration of diverse marine species found in the Apley area. Through creative imaginary and accessible information, these shelters will become educational resources, encouraging awareness and appreciation for the local marine ecosystem. The designs take inspiration from a familiar piece of work at another Isle of Wight location, Alice Malaya's Sea Eagle mural on the Columbine building in East Cowes. Completed in 2024, the 12 by 65 metre artwork included an underwater element featuring seagrass, meadows, fish and cuttlefish. The selection of species has been carefully curated in consultation with local marine biologist and underwater photographer Theo Vickers, ensuring scientific accuracy and a meaningful connection to the local environment. Alice Malaya, artist and project co-lead, said it's fantastic to have this opportunity to highlight these fascinating local marine species through art and contribute to regeneration of this much-loved space. Laura Hathaway, artist and project co-lead, said, "For me, this project is about making space for people to feel connected to the coast, to the species that live here and to each other. I want the murals to feel inviting and full of life, like they belong here. I'm really excited to see how all of our ideas come to life and transform these shelters into spaces that people want to sit in, enjoy and spend time in." Spaces that celebrate creativity, this special stretch of shoreline and the amazing marine life it supports. With a completion date set for July 2025, islanders and visitors alike will be able to enjoy the vibrant addition to their beach days just in time for the summer.
BBC Sounds. Music, radio, podcasts.
Hello. Times are tough for charities at the moment. Donations are down, volunteering is down, and as employers, they're facing the same national insurance contributions costs imposed on businesses with no customers to pass them on to. And as we've been reporting, charities serving visually impaired people are severely feeling the effects. A year ago, Guide Dogs told us that unless they made radical expenditure cuts, they would face a £20 million deficit by 2026 based on their current spending. Well, we now know in general terms what this will mean. 5 million saved on external costs, 5 million generated through new income streams, but the remaining 10 million saving is to come from cuts to staff. So what will that mean in terms of changes to the organisation and the level of services that it can give to its beneficiaries? Well, joining me, I hope to tell us all that, is Chief Executive Andrew Lennox. Andrew, welcome back.
Thank you very much, Peter. It's actually really good to be back and be able to update the audience on what we've been doing and where we're going and the progress we've made. So thank you for inviting me back again.
Can we start with the job cuts? How many and how many of those are visually impaired?
At the end of the process, which we did over a period of about a year, we ended up with 181 of our colleagues unfortunately had to leave our organisation. 5 of those had a visual impairment, which is obviously something we always seek to avoid, cutting the very thing that we're there to support. General employment is 4%, but within our community it's up to 75% unemployment. Any time that we're adding to that crisis that is out there is not what we would want to do. We did look at every opportunity we thought that we could do to find new roles or redeploy. We also managed to create some very specific lived experience roles that are going to help us hear that voice more loudly in the organisation.
So in what areas have jobs been lost, regardless of whether they're visually impaired or not? You said last year when we spoke to you last about these proposals that you couldn't tell us. Can you tell us now? Will you tell us now?
Yes, certainly. There have been some areas that we have ring-fenced and said we're not going to take roles out of those spaces. So guide dog trainers, guide dog mobility specialists, habilitation officers. But actually, as we look across the organisation, we have people come out of finance, out of IS, broader across HR and all the departments, as well as some people within our operations support areas. Some out of our marketing and fundraising teams, which seems a bit at odds when you start talking about, well, aren't you trying to grow your income streams? You're absolutely right. But actually, when we look at the skills we need for the future, they're very different as the world moves to a much more digital way of consuming their content. We need different skills for the future. So as part of that structure, we're trying to find the right skills.
So, I mean, that's half of the savings in terms of people you employ. Where are the other savings coming from? I mean, you mentioned 5 million from external spending, 5 million gained from other income streams. Can you give examples? What will you be spending less on and where will you be getting more money from?
Let's take the where are we spending less first of all. So if I look within our veterinary spaces, you might recall from previous interviews, we were talking before about seeing an almost 20% increase in our veterinary spend. And considering we spend around about £12 million a year on dog welfare, so that's vets, food and dog beds and toys and things like that, seeing a 20% increase in that space is a significant piece. So one of the things that the team's looked at is, can we look at in-house vets? So we're potentially looking at an up to £1 million saving by in-housing vets in 2 of our locations. And we're doing a study right now to see if we can increase that to more locations in the future. So that's one area where almost kind of 20% potentially of our savings have come from in the past 12 months. We're also looking at some of our spend where we have multiple agencies providing us with some of our marketing information, actually rationalising down those and getting better contract terms, and also terminating some of our smaller packages of software and transition people across to different platforms geared to back office areas, as opposed to cutting out cost of things that we're doing that are outplacements towards those we're here to serve. We also looked at how many bits of marketing literature we're actually sending out and saying, actually, can we do a better job with fewer interventions and a better voice? And looking at some of the partnerships we can do with some of the grant-giving organisations where we can say, look, we have this problem that we're trying to solve for our community. can you help us? So we're finding quite a lot of streams where we can take what we're doing and get better, and opportunities we have for the future.
So you will obviously be hoping that those combination of things will save the 20 million, but that immediately raises the key question for our listeners. What will this mean for your core activity, providing guide dogs for blind people? I just want you to hear this email, which represents the anxiety that many guide dog owners are feeling.
I've been a guide dog owner now for over 21 years, and honestly, every single one of my dogs has changed my life in ways I can't even fully put into words. They've given me opportunities, freedom, and confidence I truly don't believe I would have had otherwise. This is personal to me. It's not just a cause, it's my everyday reality. So if I had the chance to ask the CEO one question, it would be this. How will you guarantee that even in the face of change and financial pressure, Guide Dog stays true to its heart, training and placing life-changing dogs into the hands of people who don't just need them, but who want them to transform their lives, and that this mission is never watered down, sidelined, or lost? Because at the end of the day, it's not just about plugging a funding gap or restructuring. It's about protecting what matters most, the power of these incredible dogs to change lives. That has to stay front and centre, no matter what.
What do you say to that correspondent who I'm sure spoke for many?
To me, it really touches at the core of why I'm here at Guide Dog. So my first thing really is to reassure your listeners that our guide dog service remains absolutely at the core of everything we do and will continue to be front and centre. And we are seeing those long waiters reducing every week. I have a dashboard that keeps track of the 1 year, 2 year, 3 year plus waiters, and I can see those numbers coming down. And the great thing that we've started to do is previously we tended to look very regionally at how we were addressing someone on the waiting list. One of the heads of our guide dog service, she's actually looking on a national picture every week to see is there a dog somewhere else in the country that could be matched with the person who is on our long wait list. One of the things I would also like to say is a big thank you to those on the waiting list who are actually working with us. And we had 3 people not too long ago who actually travelled from the south of the country up to Scotland to be able to train as long waiters with dogs that we had identified within our Scottish teams.
The thing is, though, there are reasons for the fears of that emailer, aren't there? And it's not just about money. Falling numbers of partnerships, increases in partnerships that break down, disputes about training methods. I just want to play you these thoughts from Alan Brooks, who's one of Britain's most experienced and respected trainers.
Andrew Lennox inherited from his predecessor a declining organisation, and he's done some restructuring recently to secure the financial future. As a guide dog trainer, I'm interested in the future of the guide dog service. In 2017, his predecessor introduced a training regime from which there were no exceptions. We're treating every dog as being identical, and they're not. Dogs are as individual as we are, and techniques and methods that work with one dog will not work with another. In 2017, there were 5,015 working guide dogs in the country, and as of last year, there were 3,478. We are 2,460 guide dogs short of if we'd left things alone. Last year, they managed to train 517 new guide dogs, but they also rehomed 800 dogs. So we're not a dog rehoming charity, we're a charity to provide mobility to blind people. So what I'd like Andrew Lennox to do is to accept that this experiment has not worked and return to allowing trainers to use what they consider the best training methods to achieve success and get more guide dogs on the road. The focus has got to be on making dogs available to people who want independent mobility.
It does seem a bit of a strange coincidence that the numbers began to fall from 2017, which was exactly the moment when you introduced the new training method.
It makes it sound as if there was a big bang in 2017, and that's not the case. By 2019, we'd only rolled out to 3 or 4 of our main sites. We were doing it in a phased approach because you can't just suddenly retrain 400 or 500 guide dog trainers overnight. It takes time. So we were doing it site by site. So actually, we didn't complete that process until late 22, I believe. When you take it into that account and actually understand that we had a shortage in our workforce, that was probably more of a driver in the early days for a decline in numbers. We had a large cohort of retirees in 2015, 16, 17, which we didn't adequately plan for. And I think we have to accept that quite plainly. But actually, that's why we put the academy programme in. It was initiated just before the pandemic and actually therefore didn't really get started until afterwards. But that's producing us a huge number of dog trainers going forward for the future. And as I look at the numbers that we're doing today, yes, there was 517 partnerships produced last year, which was 10% up on the year before. This year, we're going to be doing 600. But that's been more rate limited by the dogs coming through as we re-established our breeding programme. And next year, we're going to be back to the 700, which is more like the average number of core partnerships. Now, there will always be some people who prefer one training method over another, and I completely appreciate that. Many roads can lead to Rome. But I'm actually looking at the numbers of stickiness of partnerships and the feedback I get from talking to guide dog owners. There's actually a lot of satisfaction with what we're doing and the partnerships that we're producing. So I'm greatly reassured by that. We are going to be getting back to that 700 plus guide dog partnerships per year.
Right, so just to go back to waiting lists, you say the numbers are falling. Can you say by how much they're falling and what the average waiting time is at the moment?
At the moment, that's sitting around about 16 months. But that includes people who are able to be matched early for a variety of reasons, and also those who are very, very long waiters who may have waited 3 years. And it's that average there.
What's an acceptable waiting time, would you think?
Many people remember kind of back in the days where you would put down a handle on a Friday and pick up a new handle on a Monday. When we actually look at what we need to do that is best for the individual in the assessments, whilst there isn't an ideal waiting time, it certainly shouldn't be back-to-back. There should be a period where we evaluate what's changed in your life in the 8 years since you last applied for a guide dog. We're making sure the right partnership for you is there. Your walking speed may have changed, your routes may have changed, your job may have changed, your location may have changed. It needs to be down to the individual, but the optimum, I would have thought, would certainly be between 3 and 9 months, though what the optimum actually is, I will leave for the experts to decide.
When do you think you'll have reached that point?
Sometime back into 26, early 27 is when we're seeing the drop-off in kind of that wait time below 12 months. So not far off where we are now.
There is one thing which keeps cropping up, and that is that there is some sort of unwillingness on the part of guide dogs to train totally blind people. There was a time when your absolute standard guide dog owner would have been totally blind. Partially sighted people, it was unusual for them to have a guide dog. There are those who think that that situation has turned around and they don't understand why.
As we're looking around the organisation, it looks broadly that the placements we're doing, the partnerships we're doing are broadly in line with the mix of people who are presenting to us asking for a guide dog. What is actually quite encouraging, I've actually just been sat having lunch with some of our academy team. One of them actually said to me, I'm hoping that someone on my next class is going to be someone who is totally blind to make sure I have those skills in my early stage training. The ambition is there from the team to make sure we are serving that part of our community, but we can only serve those who actually present to us. There's a bit of variation across the country, but we're broadly meeting the needs in the proportions that we're presented with. That's the bit of data we're trying to dig into next to find out, well, actually, do we have an issue with people who've got that message from somewhere that we're not helping totally blind people? Do we need to do something to actually say, no, please come and apply? We need some better data before we can kind of make any sweeping statements to say, no, there isn't an issue, or yes, there is.
You've published a 15-year plan full of great aspirations about visually impaired people living full lives, having the opportunities to do the things they want to do. It's rather reminiscent of the RNIB's 10-year strategy. They said much the same thing. And I'll say to you what I said to them. It's all very well having these great aims. Shouldn't you be concentrating on the short-term problems which are being faced in carrying out the aims that the organisation was founded to do? Train dogs to guide as many blind people who need them.
Our first phase is literally called Focus. That does mean focusing on our core services, such as the guide dog service, and making sure that that is the very best it can be, whether it be from our breeding programme all the way through to how we do post-partnership support. But then people also have asked us and challenged us on some occasions, what's this children and young people service? Why are you doing that? Well,
I was coming to that.
You have to remember, we also, as part of our remit, we actually have Blind Children is actually a charity within Guide Dogs. It came into our Guide Dog family in 2012. So we do actually have a remit to actually look at children and young people. When I look at things like the 21% difference in attainment at GCSE levels between a child with visual impairment and their sighted peers, that can't be right. We as guide dogs have to be there to support them. It's part of what we've always tried to do is help as many people as we can. And a lot of that is through the guide dog service. But by dint of the guide dog service, we have other skills that we can bring to bear where we have capacity on wider society.
Shouldn't these things be being done by educational authorities in the case of children, social services in terms of rehab? If you have found yourself in financial trouble, isn't that why? Because you've tried to take on all these things?
I don't think it is. Those things that we've taken on, as I say, part of it is things that we would have naturally as part of our guide dog service. So I think that's fine. But when I actually am out speaking to people, so I was approached in the street the other day when I was collecting by a lady who wanted to know what's the youngest age that her 12-year-old niece could get a guide dog. And we started speaking about the other services that we provide that she had no idea we were able to do. And her eyes were suddenly opened as to the world of possibility that stood in front of her niece that we might be able to provide support for. So I'd encourage any of your listeners, please reach out. We're always here to be able to help those we're here to serve.
But if your aspirations and those of the RNIBs are so similar, isn't it time to reconsider the idea of, at the very least, working in closer harmony and sharing some of the responsibilities?
Right now, we're doing some research looking at how technology is going to impact upon us and what the opportunities are for kind of human plus dog plus technology. But also there's obviously spin-offs in that in terms of some of the services that RNIB provide. So we've actually come together and saying, look, rather than doing the research twice, let's do it once together. And things like that where we're making sure we're not burning through the donor pound 2 or 3 times are going really well. Thomas Pocklington Trust and ourselves are currently partnering around education support for not just children but adults as well. And that's going really well. The chairs of the organisations speak on a regular basis. The CEOs speak. The team leads speak, the marketing and campaigning teams speak regularly to make sure that we are doing things with one voice. The world we live in is ever changing, and for me it's always got to come back to how can we produce the best outcomes for those we're here to serve. That's literally how I think. Right now we're trying to make sure we work as collaboratively as possible across education, development, even the leadership development we're doing with the New Horizons programme to find those lived experience leaders for the future so we can get more people in employment by having more role models out there for people to go, actually, I want to be like that person. I want to be leading organisations. The organisations are working closer than ever before, and I'm very proud of that collaboration that we've managed to do.
It's only fair to say that given that you took over in 2023 and these problems were publicised in the first half of 2024, that you inherited them. Were you surprised at what you found when you arrived at the organisation?
When I arrived, we were probably only just starting to see the headwinds of some of these issues. So my predecessor had already recognised the workforce issues and put in place the academy structure to help us train more trainers faster, and that's going great guns. I think the economic issues, mid-23 to late 23, they really started to crystallise, and that rising inflation that we all saw in our cost of living was really beginning to bite at that point. I think inherited is probably too strong a word. I arrived at a pivot point where lots of things just came together at the same moment, and we suddenly found we actually had to act quite quickly. Yes, we've got some challenges to face, but the opportunity we have to help our community is just a fantastic one. I mean, we do something that's truly amazing. My second day here, I walked in to find someone who had been on my interview panel with their first ever guide dog with a smile that's wider than the double door that they were trying to walk through. And the team I have around me are exceptional. They just need to be let off the leash to do what they need to do.
So are you in for the long haul?
I'm here as long as there is a challenge for me to be dealing with, as long as the organisation wants me there. So I'm loving what I do, although I don't love everything I've had to do.
Andrew Lennox, thank you very much.
Thank you.
As always, we want to hear your reactions, and as we've talked to the 2 biggest organisations representing visually impaired people over the last few weeks, we'll be broadcasting some of your reactions next week. If you'd like to contribute, email in touch at bbc.co.uk, leave your voice messages on 0161 836 1338, and you can go to our website bbc.co.uk/in touch. From me, Peter White, and producer Fern Lulham. Goodbye.